So, what really makes someone a success? A true outlier. We all love these stories of the lone genius, the person who triumphs against all the odds just through pure talent and hard work. But what if that's not the whole story? Not even close. Today, we're diving into Malcolm Gladwell's game-changing book, Outliers, to uncover the hidden rules of success. You know this story, right? It's the classic tale of the self-made man. And Benjamin Franklin is kind of the poster child for it. The whole idea that anyone, from anywhere, can pull themselves up by their bootstraps and end up standing before kings. And look, it's a super powerful, inspiring idea. It's really at the heart of how we think about achievement.
Okay, but here's the question Gladwell throws at us, and it's a big one. What if this entire story we tell ourselves, this deeply ingrained belief in the solo superstar, is just plain wrong? What if nobody actually rises from nothing?
This is the core idea of the whole book. Gladwell argues that if you want to understand why someone is successful, you can't just look at them. You have to look at everything around them. We're going to go on a journey into the hidden advantages, the lucky breaks, and the invisible cultural gifts that shape every single successful person. Okay, let's dive into this. First up, we're tackling myth number 1. This idea that in any real competition, the best and the brightest will just naturally float to the top. But Gladwell points to some pretty wild evidence that suggests it might have more to do with a lottery, a birth date lottery. All right, check this out. This is a roster from the absolute pinnacle of Canadian junior hockey. This is supposed to be a perfect meritocracy, right? It doesn't matter who your dad is or how much money you have. If you can play, you make the team. Simple. Or so you'd think.
But take a really close look at this list. I mean, zoom in on their birth months. Do you see anything weird? There is a massive hidden advantage buried right here in plain sight. It's just wild, right? Look at those numbers. A huge, overwhelming majority of these elite players are born in January, February, or March. And the reason is actually ridiculously simple. The cutoff date for youth hockey leagues in Canada is January 1st. So a kid born on January 2nd is playing against kids who are almost a whole year younger than him. And when you're 9 or 10 years old, that's a massive physical advantage.
Gladwell calls this the Matthew effect. It's this idea of cumulative advantage, basically a snowball effect. The kids who are a little bit older at the beginning are a little bigger, a little more coordinated, so they get labeled as talented. They get picked for the better teams, they get the best coaches, they practice way more, and that tiny, totally random initial advantage just compounds year after year until it becomes a real gigantic advantage. They didn't start off better, they just started off older. So that builds right into our second myth, the idea that all you really need is raw talent. Gladwell argues, nope, what's way more important is having the opportunity to practice a lot. And this brings us to the really famous one, the 10,000-hour rule. It comes from research that found it takes about, 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to become a world-class expert in pretty much anything. And here's the key insight. Practice isn't what you do after you get good. It's literally the thing that makes you good. But, and this is the part people always forget, it's not just about grinding it out. I mean, 10,000 hours, that is a ton of time. It's almost impossible for anyone to do on their own. You need to be in the right place at the right time. You need a truly extraordinary opportunity, a lucky break that even gives you the chance to put in those hours.
Just think about the Beatles, right? Before they were, the Beatles, they had this gig in Hamburg, Germany, playing in these gritty strip clubs, and they had to play for 8 hours a night, 7 days a week. That was their 10,000 hours. Or take Bill Gates. Seriously, how many 8th graders in the entire world had unlimited access to a computer terminal in 1968? Pretty much zero. But Gates got that chance through this unbelievable series of fortunate events. That was his Hamburg.
And this idea of opportunity leads us straight to our final myth, the idea that where we come from, our culture, is just some interesting backstory. Gladwell argues it is so much more than that. It's like an invisible inheritance that shapes our whole attitude towards work and how we succeed. Okay, to really get this, let's look at 2 totally different ways of life. First, you've got the herding cultures from the hills of Great Britain. Your wealth is literally walking around on 4 legs so it can be stolen in an instant. This creates what's called a culture of honor, where your reputation is everything and you have to be ready to fight at a moment's notice. Now, contrast that with a rice paddy farmer in southern China. Rice farming is incredibly complex. It's meticulous and it is a dawn-to-dusk grind all year long. And this Chinese proverb just nails the whole mindset that comes out of that rice paddy.
The work is meaningful because there's a super clear relationship between how much effort you put in and what reward you get out. The harder you work, the bigger your harvest. It's a culture of persistence.
And that legacy, that cultural inheritance, gives you a massive advantage when it comes to something like math. Because it turns out that being good at math isn't really about being a genius. It's about being persistent. It's about having the grit to sit with a tough problem and just keep trying for 20 minutes if you have to until you figure it out. That's the lesson of the rice paddy.
So, when you put it all together, you see that success isn't some random magical thing at all. It's a product of these specific patterns, of timing, of opportunity, and of culture. And that raises a really big question. If we can actually see the patterns, can we start to build a world that gives more people a shot?
And it turns out one of the biggest structures that shapes who gets an opportunity and who doesn't is something we almost never even think about: the American school year, with that long summer vacation. It's a holdover from the 19th century, but it has absolutely massive consequences for us today.
Okay, get ready for this, because this data is absolutely staggering. This chart tracks kids' reading scores, and what it shows is that during the school year, kids from all backgrounds, rich, middle class, and poor, learn at pretty much the exact same rate. But then, summer hits. Wealthier kids' scores keep climbing. They're going to camp, they're reading books, while poorer kids' scores stay flat or even go down. The achievement gap we always talk about, it's not created in the classroom. It's created over summer vacation. And in the end, that's really the whole point Gladwell is making. The success of Outliers isn't some big mystery. It's grounded in this whole web of advantages and inheritances. They are the beneficiaries of their history, their community, lucky breaks, and legacy. The outlier, it turns out, is not an outlier at all. They're a product of their world. Which leaves us with this one huge final question. Once we understand the recipe for success, we can't pretend we don't know how it works anymore. So the real challenge isn't figuring it out. The challenge is this: how do we stop leaving success up to a patchwork of random advantages and lucky breaks and start building a society that actually gives everyone a real shot?